The day begins quietly as Lena Carter pushes open the door of a busy gun store located on the edge of a small American town. The store is loud as usual, customers chatting, regulars laughing, and the metallic clicking of rifles being handled echoing through the room. When Lena steps in, the atmosphere barely changes. No one pays attention to her at first, and the few who notice her immediately dismiss her. She's small, dressed plainly, hair tied back without effort, wearing no military patches, no flashy gear, nothing that would hint at experience. To everyone, she looks like another unsure beginner walking in for her first rifle lesson. As she walks deeper into the store, several men glance her way. Their looks are half amused, half curious, as if they're waiting for her to do something foolish. Lena ignores them and heads straight to the rifle display, moving with quiet confidence. But to the others, her silence looks like shyness. One man whispers to another, "Bet she doesn't even know what a recoil is," and the group erupts into soft laughter. They assume she's clueless, maybe here for fun, maybe trying to impress someone, anything except the truth. Lena studies each weapon carefully, her eyes scanning every detail with precise focus. She handles a rifle gently, checking the barrel, feeling the weight, examining the sight rail, her movements controlled and efficient. But even this goes unnoticed by the men who continue laughing, convinced she's just pretending to know what she's doing. Behind the counter, Mr. Grant, the store owner with weathered hands and a lifetime of experience, watches her without saying a word. Unlike the customers, he notices something unusual: the steadiness in her hands, the way she breathes before holding the rifle to test its balance, and the old scar peeking from her collar. Most civilians don't stand like that. Most don't examine a weapon with that level of familiarity. But Mr. Grant stays silent, observing her closely. Meanwhile, the others continue whispering, their mockery growing stronger with every passing second. Some smile, some shake their heads, all convinced they know who she is. A harmless girl out of place. But Lena doesn't flinch, doesn't react, doesn't speak. She didn't come here to prove anything. Yet soon, they would all find out exactly who she really was. As Lena continues examining the rifle, one of the louder men, a guy named Rick, steps forward with a smug smile. He speaks in a tone meant for children, not adults. "Careful there," he says loudly, making sure everyone hears. "That's not a toy. Maybe start with something lighter. Something beginner level." His friends snicker behind him. Another adds, "Yeah, sweetheart, that one might knock you across the room." Laughter fills the air again, careless and rude. Lena remains silent. She doesn't look at them, doesn't defend herself. She simply continues inspecting the rifle, her expression calm, almost emotionless. But now, her movements become a little sharper, a little more precise, not out of anger, but out of discipline. She checks the chamber with quick, practiced motions, adjusts the stock with a single confident twist, tests the balance like someone who has done this thousands of times. The laughter starts to fade. Rick watches, her hands more carefully now. Civilians don't move like that. Beginners don't have that kind of control. His arrogance drains into uncertainty. Another man whispers, "Where'd she learn that? How's she holding it like that?" But instead of admitting their mistake, they cling to excuses. "Probably watched some tutorial online," one mutters. "Must be copying what she sees in movies," another says. Yet even they don't believe their own explanations. Across the counter, Mr. Grant watches the scene unfold. His eyes narrow. He recognizes those skills, the stance, the grip, the quiet breathing pattern. This girl wasn't guessing. She wasn't pretending. She was remembering. The room grows quieter, their jokes replaced by an uncomfortable tension. For the first time, the men who mocked her begin to feel something they didn't expect. They might have underestimated someone dangerous. The store grows noticeably quieter, the earlier laughter fading into an awkward stillness. Lena continues her quiet inspection, lifting a long-range rifle with the steadiness of someone who has held far heavier weapons under far worse conditions. She doesn't rush. She doesn't pose. She simply moves with a discipline none of the onlookers recognize, except one. Mr. Grant, the old gun store owner, steps out from behind the counter. His boots make a solid thud against the floor, a sound that cuts through the nervous silence. He approaches Lena slowly, not with the casual air he uses for customers, but with a watchful, careful respect. Lena finally notices him standing beside her. She looks up, calm but alert. There's something in her eyes, something deep, worn, and painfully familiar to him. He studies her. The faint scar cutting across her jaw, the burn mark by her wrist, the hardened posture of someone who learned to stand tall even when the world collapsed around them. Then he asks the question that freezes the entire room. Which unit were you with? Every customer falls silent. The air feels heavier. Rick, who mocked her minutes ago, forces a laugh. Unit? Man, she's not military. She's just... Mr. Grant doesn't even glance at him. His eyes remain locked on Lena's. She doesn't answer immediately. Her jaw tenses, her fingers tightening slightly on the rifle. Then, softly, almost too softly to hear, she replies, "I'd rather not talk about it." It's not denial. It's not confusion. It's the voice of someone who lived through something she wants to forget. Mr. Grant understands instantly. The room shifts. The customers glance at each other, suddenly questioning everything they thought they knew. Their earlier jokes now echo back in their minds with a sting of shame. Rick swallows hard. For the first time, he truly looks at her, noticing the discipline in her shoulders, the fatigue behind her eyes, the quiet readiness in her stance. Lena lowers the rifle gently, as if returning to a memory she didn't want to revisit. In that moment, everyone in the store realizes they weren't mocking a clueless girl. They were mocking a soldier. The silence in the gun store becomes almost physical, thick enough that every breath feels loud. Lena places the rifle back on the rack with measured care, her movements quiet but deliberate. The customers who mocked her stare in stunned stillness, unsure whether to speak or shrink away. The air feels charged, like the moment before a storm breaks. Mr. Grant steps back a single pace, his eyes still locked on Lena. The way she reacted, the weight behind her refusal to talk, the scars, the discipline, it all confirms what he already suspected. This wasn't a girl playing soldier. This was someone who had lived it, survived it, and carried it in her bones. Without another word, Mr. Grant straightens his posture. Heels together, shoulders squared, head high. And in the middle of his own store, surrounded by customers who had known him for years, he performs a gesture none of them have ever witnessed from him. He gives Lena a full, formal military salute. The sound of laughter, the earlier mockery, the condescending voices, all of it vanishes under the weight of that single gesture. Even the air seems to still. Lena freezes, eyes widening slightly. She wasn't expecting this. She wasn't prepared for recognition. In fact, she had spent months avoiding it. Her throat tightens, and for the first time since entering the store, a flicker of emotion crosses her face, a mix of surprise, discomfort, and a quiet, buried pain. The customers watch in stunned silence. Rick's face flushes red, his earlier arrogance crumbling as he realizes just how badly he misjudged her. His friends stare at the floor, shame creeping up their necks. After holding the salute, Mr. Grant lowers his arm, his voice steady but carrying a gravity that shakes the room. "Welcome home, Sergeant Carter." A ripple of shock travels through the store. Sergeant, combat rank, respected title. Lena looks down, her jaw clenched, her eyes blinking back memories she didn't want brought to the surface. She gives a small nod, not out of pride, but out of recognition. That moment changes everything. The girl they laughed at seconds earlier, now stands before them as someone they should have honored from the start. Mr. Grant gently gestures for Lena to follow him into the quiet back room of the gun store, a place lined with old photographs, medals, faded certificates, and the kind of history only veterans understand. Away from the staring customers, the noise, and the embarrassment of the men who mocked her, the air feels calmer. Still heavy, but kinder, he pours her a glass of water and places it in front of her without speaking. It isn't hospitality, it's understanding. Lena sits slowly, her shoulders lowering for the first time since she walked in. The weight she carried, the one no one else noticed, becomes visible now. Not in her posture, but in her eyes. Mr. Grant doesn't push. He doesn't question. He simply waits. Eventually, Lena speaks, not in long stories or dramatic confession, but in brief, quiet fragments. She reveals that she was the youngest female combat medic in her battalion, deployed into brutal conflict zones where she patched wounds under gunfire, dragged injured soldiers to safety, and held dying hands when no one else could reach them. She doesn't share the tales like someone bragging about experience. She speaks like someone who lived through memories carved too deep to erase. She tells him she lost friends. She tells him she stopped sleeping. She tells him coming home felt lonelier than the battlefield. And Mr. Grant listens, every word landing with the weight of someone who knows exactly what she means. When they step back into the main store, the atmosphere has completely changed. The customers stand quietly, their earlier arrogance shattered by the reality they never considered. Rick steps forward first, stumbling over his apology. Lena doesn't scold him, doesn't lecture him. She simply nods with a small, tired smile, a gesture that hurts more than anger ever could. As she walks out the door, the men instinctively move aside, creating a path of respect they should have offered from the beginning. Mr. Grant salutes her one last time. But this time it isn't just recognition, it's gratitude. Lena steps into the sunlight, not seeking honor, not seeking pity, but carrying one quiet victory. For the first time in months, someone finally saw her.